time for the Natchitoches Parish School Board Committee meeting as a whole for September 8, 2020. Members of the public, thank you for attending. Board members do the same. Please practice social distancing in the back of the room, and masks are required. Please silence your electronic devices, anything that may disrupt the meeting. Ms. Rebels, will you give us your roll call attendance?
Mr. Danzy?
Here.
Mr. McLeod?
Here.
Mr. Benefield?
Here.
Mr. Garner?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Present.
Mrs. Guidro? Here. Mrs. Willis? Mrs. Broadway? Here. Mrs. McGaskey? Here. Ms. Palmer? And Ms. Phelps?
Here.
Quorum.
Thank you. For any members of the public that would wish to speak to an agenda item, please secure a form in the back of the room and pass it to the front. Mr. Eloy, can you start with your superintendent's report?
Yes, sir. A lot has been going on, as we all know. I would like to start with Hurricane Laura. We were very blessed to have extremely minimal damage to all of our sites. We're talking about superficial damage, some soffit work around the edges of buildings, things of that nature, some trees down. We've assessed all of that, and we've actually, for that damage, GOSEP has asked us to put into FEMA, and we've done all that paperwork, and we'll hear back from them. But again, very, very minimal. And when we look at other parishes around us, we're very blessed and very lucky to come out the way we did. The one major issue from the hurricane was the loss of food, which I know many of you are aware of. We are waiting till tomorrow. Ms. Hicks will have specific estimates. She'll have specific estimates of the exact amount of food that cost us. We do know, though, that about 75% of that total food that was lost due to the hurricane was commodities from the federal government, and those foods are all reimbursable. So we don't lose anything there. As far as our purchased foods, for the Thursday meeting, she will have the exact numbers of how much that cost us. And what that's doing for us is we're looking at possible the cost of generators specifically for that warehouse. So, if we ever have a weather event again, which we know we will, hopefully not to the extent we had, we can move food around to the warehouse to prevent food loss. We also, one of the interesting things about that, though, is that we'd like to recognize SWEPCO. They were feeding their employees, and now that they're, for the most part, out of the Natchitoches area, they donated 2 loads of food that they are not using, and we're going to be looking into doing something with the city, Mayor Williams, and some other folks to kind of celebrate the folks who put in all that hard work with all that food, because we're talking about ribs and pork chops and all sorts of nice things that we don't typically get in our orders at the school level. Moving on from the hurricane, I'm excited today because it was our first day of school. I feel like we've been planning this for, feels like years instead of weeks and months. I went to every school today. It took me about 7 hours to do, but we did it. And I was so impressed by everything I saw, whether it was the students, the parents, the teachers, the administrators. It was humbling to see all the work and everything going into everything. And also, on a personal note, I know that my children thoroughly enjoyed their day, and we're so excited to be a part of Natchitoches schools, and that's just so special to me. And I know many parents today felt that same thing, because it's just something we haven't had for 6 months to be able to experience that. I talked to the principals before this meeting, and anything that went on today was typical first day things. So all of the reports of today being just craziness didn't occur, and I think that's not because it couldn't have occurred. I think that is because the work that went in the past 6 months from everyone. And so I'm just so thankful to all those folks. And but our job's not done. One day down, 187 to go. So we're gonna keep improving and keep adjusting things. I think probably what you'll hear a lot about in the coming days is the process for getting virtual up, because it's one thing, we have a plan and we're executing it, but it's also very different in in practice. And so you're probably hear some kids who are struggling to get into Google Classroom, things of that nature. And we had the parent help hotline up, and I spoke to Mr. Kozad before the meeting. I think that they've probably responded to around 300 or 400 emails over the past week, and are continually responding to emails as they come. And our goal there is that no one will wait longer than 24 hours to get a response. But we also know that we only have so many people in that department. So if everyone will just be patient with us, but everything is going to get sorted out. And I also want to let parents know that students this week are not going to be penalized if they can't access something or if they don't have their iPad yet. These are all things that are being worked out that unfortunately we didn't have the luxury of having our soft start because of the hurricane, so we're not going to penalize anyone for those things. But overall,
So Mr. Eagle, you said we had to hand out all of the iPads in one day, or try to, as opposed to 5 days.
So yeah, for example, Natchitoches Central, which I think had to hand out over 600 iPads, that was supposed to take place over the entire soft start week. Instead, that got pushed to a 2-day period, and there was frustration on a lot of people's parts that the lines were long. Unfortunately, I don't know a logistical way to hand out 600 iPads in that period of time while also getting all the papers signed that need to be signed, and do that quickly. I'll tell you, I saw people working as fast as they could, and I've just been so impressed with how people have responded to this. But yeah, doing it in a shorter time span has definitely caused some issues, and we're not going to be shy about that. But we just want people to, be a little patient and work with us and give us this week. And I think a lot of those questions and everything will be answered and figured out, and we'll be good to go.
I got to, without the Central, I went out. They did an excellent job. They really had it all worked out and stuff. It's just slow going through the line, but all the paperwork the paperwork we had to fill. It wasn't that much paperwork really to fill out, but all of them did an excellent job.
Well,
going through the line, I had to go through the line.
It gives me goosebumps to hear that because, it almost makes me emotional because you see the blood, sweat, and tears that, whether it's Miss Page and Mr. Kozad and Miss Rochelle and Miss Wright and the people here have done, but then take for every hour they put in, there's probably 2 or 3 hours that the school personnel put in. And to see that pay off in such a smooth start to our day, it doesn't mean that we didn't have bumps and we won't have bumps and everything, but I just thought today was such a typical first day of school. And it's not what we expected. I don't know what we expected, but we didn't expect typical. And so all the accolades need to go to the folks who were making that happen. And it was just something special in my career, and I won't forget it. So, but other than that, things are going great.
There was one thing a parent asked me about: should a child come down with COVID-19 in the classroom, what is our response and our reaction going to be? And Superintendent and I had a chance to chat about that a little bit today. We do have that on the website. We're following Louisiana Department of Education guidelines and Region 7. And those will all be handled by case-by-case basis. And of course, we're not going to talk about names because of privacy. But for all those parents who are concerned, and we may do, at the superintendent's suggestion, we may do a little better job of promoting that in certain areas. But that again is all on the website. And if you would look under the COVID-19 solve the COVID-19 tab, and you'll see it.
And what I'll say to that is, it is contextual to the student because it's going to be based on where the infection came from, their exposure, et cetera, but the algorithm that takes place is the same no matter what. So if you're a positive case, you go home and you go for the 10-day period and all those things. Those things are set in stone. It's just a matter of which algorithm applies to your student based on their specific circumstances. So, the things I think parents want to hear: will you be contacted if your student is exposed to a positive case? Yes. You will be contacted first by phone, and then you will also be contacted via a form letter that will tell you specifically how long you have to be quarantined, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are in stone, concrete, and they're on the website. The things that are contextual is, okay, I was exposed to a student who is positive, or I was exposed to a teacher who's positive, then that becomes the difference where how long were you exposed for? Did you have your mask on? Did the other person have their mask on? Those are the things that are specific to that circumstance, if that makes sense. So, and what I also tell parents is, you know, the people who have been dealing with this all summer long, and I say summer long, since March 13th, Miss Page and the principals and myself, we've been dealing with this on and people aren't aware of this because it's a HIPAA thing, it's personnel, we can't shout it to the rooftops, but we have gotten very comfortable at dealing with this, as anyone in human resources has become over the past 6 months. And so they can expect consistency in every place we can offer consistency, and they can expect us to follow CDC and LDH guidelines at every step of the way. We've gotten so good at this to the point where we're on a first name basis with Office of Public Health, and there's times where we're like, hey, we know someone who's told this from another region, but you told us this, and we've actually at times been on the ball in that respect and corrected Office of Public Health because we're living this every day. So that's not going to change now that we have more kids. It's just going to mean that, you know, we're going to deal with it in that way. But I'm excited because I saw so many people masked up today, masked up appropriately. I went to LP Vaughn today, the second stop on my journey, and none of their students based on Bessie guidelines have to be masked up because they're all under 3rd grade. 75% of all those students volunteered. Their families volunteered to mask them up. So we also have the new LDH reporting system that the principals are now reporting all these things into LDH, which kind of also helps them to do this in a responsible manner. And so, you know, whether it's every board meeting or once a week, you will be updated as to how this is affecting us in a personnel/student respect. We obviously can't tell you any identifiable information, even the school it's at, but we can tell you in this district we have this many students who've been quarantined, or this many personnel who've been quarantined, things of that nature.
Thank you, Superintendent Ebon. It helps to put that out to the public, and that we are prepared. The guidelines are in place. They're already working. We're hoping and expect a good, safe, successful school year. Thank you, sir. Any questions for the superintendent?
Approximately how many are in virtual at this point?
So actually, so all that's going to close Friday, and it's a little bit in flux, but where we last left off, it was between 37% and 40% were in virtual. But what we're seeing today is we've had numerous students opt out of virtual, and we've had numerous students opt out of face-to-face. So I can give you an actual number probably Monday, and I can send that via my weekly email to y'all after that Monday meeting, which I know we haven't had that because of the hurricane and because of the first day of school, but I can give you that information to an exact amount Monday afternoon.
And that 9 weeks closes when for the
So
transfer?
the 2 week period closes Friday. The 9 week period, I believe, is that October 28th. I believe is that first checkpoint, but that doesn't include if there's a major life event at home, a major change where people can submit those to myself and we can make accommodations where necessary.
It's good to review. Good to review.
And any students that need internet access, this check with technology?
So where we're at right now with internet is, I think last board meeting I spoke to y'all about our devices being sent to us by August 22nd, I believe was our target date. That has now been pushed back to September 10th.
26th.
I'm sorry, September 26th, that's the second time it's been pushed back. September 26th by the manufacturer. So what we currently have is we have any public Wi-Fi spots like Park Natchitoches, things of that nature. We have our schools are projecting their Wi-Fi signals to the parking lot, but those 30 promised for day one and extended, we're having to wait on the manufacturer for September 26th because we have half of the components, but you need the full components to be able to make the whole thing work. Is that correct, Mr. Koza?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, but we are putting diplomatic pressure on those manufacturers, but they're kind of looking at us and saying, yeah, you and everybody else. But that being said, we've gotten every order we asked for with that exception because we are now 1-to-1 I forgot to mention that because
Protected cases.
we did get all of our Logitech protected cases, and technology has been working around the clock to get all the schools set up for that. But that one area is one we're lacking in still.
The 26th of September.
Yes, ma'am. And if that gets pushed back again, I will email y'all to that effect. But Mr. Koza?
I'd like to clarify, the 26th of September is when the manufacturer is projecting that they are, that's when the distributor is expecting to have received them from the manufacturer. The distributor is planning on overnighting them to us, and then there's install time. So I wouldn't want to be quoted on saying September 26th that they will be up and running.
And just to give y'all some heads up on this, I think that's the 4th or 5th time that the manufacturer and distributor have pushed these back.
Yes.
Which we've talked to other districts. Apparently, that's what everyone's experiencing. So.
Okay. Board members, we have some old business. September 19th training that we're going to conduct is still on. We'll be able to provide by Friday the room number and location, and it's going to be a final high. And I'd like to see everyone there. I know Mr. McGuire has previously gave. Any other old business? Okay. Mr. Cozad, do we have any input from the public on any of the agenda items?
No, sir.
Thank you. New business. To adopt the adjusted millage rates for the year 2020. And items 1, 2, and 3, we're going to conduct these on Thursday, 4:30. You should have received an email or a notice from Ms. Kanika. We're going to have that meeting Thursday for public input and public comment. And we're going to have Mr. Jay Sheffield, our accountant, CPA, outside firm, to come in and provide a millage 101 and the education piece that we need to help make that decision. Superintendent Eloy, do you have any comments in that area?
No, we talked to Mr. Sheffield for a good long while, and he was very helpful in clearing up some misconceptions with us. So I just asked him, I said, can you provide this exact kind of education for everyone on the board and for the people in the community? Because I think a lot of people feel as though a millage roll-up is an increase, and he puts it in terms that really puts it in better context, which is, it's not a increase, it's to accommodate for the changing of the millage rates, and it's meeting it where it is based on the new assessment and based on, what's the word I'm looking for?
Change it for the reappraisal.
The reappraisal, thank you. Yeah, so. But he puts it in much more eloquent terms than I do. So.
That's why he's here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm sorry, Ms. Kanika just reminded me to tell y'all, the hearing is at 4:30, and that's a public hearing, and then we'll immediately move into the board meeting, but y'all's presence is requested at that 4:30 hearing. I think last time they did this, the hearing really didn't take place, in the sense that no one was here for the hearing from the public. Yeah, so we could have a ton of people, or we could have no one and just move into the meeting. It just really depends on the public's interest.
We're also going to need to make sure the capacity of the room is monitored. Because I think we're at 50%, is that correct?
Correct. Right now, unless we move into phase 3 before then. So.
Okay. Any discussion, any additional discussion on that business? Let's review the consent agenda. Any discussion on the consent? Mr. Dancy, share your report.
Absolutely. Item number 1, take appropriate action on bids. 1A is security camera system for East Natchitoches and LP Bond Schools, and the bids were open August 18th. That information is in your packet, and there's a recommendation on that. A&G Computer Services, was a little better on that one. Item 1B, reading and assessment progress monitoring. That one has, some notes on it. Mr. Cozad, do you wanna make any comment on that?
I will say that with a lot of our vendors that we do a lot of business with, we typically expect a warm and friendly attitude from those going into our K-12 schools. And a quick, small town kind of courteous response that we've kind of been accustomed to. And we had 2 schools get completed by Louisiana Tech Security Systems, and both installations were just utter nightmares. It took over a year, I believe, from start to finish before we finally just paid the bill. We've tried to get warranty repairs done on certain things at the Fairview School, and they sent us an invoice for them that we believe were under warranty, and it's just been it's been a headache like we have not experienced with any other vendors that have worked on our camera systems. That's why I wrote that up, and my recommendation was to reject the bid from LA Tech Security Systems, just based on lack of response time, overall unpleasant attitude to work with, and that also comes from the principals at the 2 schools that have worked with them previously. And full details are written up there. If you guys have any questions specific, I'll answer them.
And I think, Mr. Milner, has quoted Renaissance Learning.
Well, I'm sorry, Renaissance Learning, that's for 1B and 1C.
That's for item C.
Yeah. And what those are, it says progress monitoring, but what most folks will tell you to move a school system, you have to have some form or fashion to show interim testing, to show where students are on like a monthly basis, 9 weeks basis, so that way we're not doing post-mortem testing, where we get to the end of the year, we test, and it's too late to fix this. So what we're saying, if you look at all districts that have moved forward, what they do is they do those interim tests. These are aligned with our state mandated testing, LEAP 2025, and these are very well-known systems. Star Reading is also, if you're familiar with Accelerated Reader, that's the same program, but this is a diagnostics test to tell us where your student is at grade level-wise, and then really pinpoints down where the student is grade level-wise, but also where their issues are. And then the teacher can then respond to that by addressing those high-need areas. And then hopefully the next 9 weeks when they take that test again, those areas are not there any longer because they've been addressed and remedied.
This one is also in your packet if you want to read it, B and C. Any questions on the bids?
Yeah, I just want to thank Mr. Cozad and Mr. Milner for stepping up and not growing another project with that former security system. If we have that kind of trouble, we don't need those folks.
We can create enough trouble of our own.
With no help.
And then one thing with the one we pick, if being local, and you call them, they come right out, the other company coming from Baton Rouge or somewhere, they might be 2 days to come and do something, and he know the system or whatever, we can get it
Well,
here.
then it don't travel time.
Yeah, and he do it, if you can get to it the same day, get to it the same day, but, with security stuff, we need to have them fixed as soon as we can, not wait 2 or 3 days to do it. So that was a good call.
Item number 2, receive transportation report. Brian?
Before they get started, just want to let y'all know that according to the principals, today was the best day for transportation on day 1 that they've ever had, and that was unanimous. So I appreciate these 2 gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll let Alfred speak, but I appreciate that comments. We put a lot of hard effort and time into this, and it's not just the office team. I have to also make sure that we're publicly recognizing our drivers, our monitors, our maintenance, everyone that's on the team that's made today possible for a first day. you're gonna get calls, you're gonna get, route questions, things like that, but, appreciate the comments, and we felt it was smooth from our side, and we know we still have a lot of work to do, and we're committed to making sure with the rest of the week finishes, so.
Just a report on capacity. Our average capacity was about 10 to 12. The numbers were where we thought they should be. We understand that the rest of this week we're going to see an influx, maybe a decrease, like the high school with the A and B days, and some parents just brought their kids to school for the first day of school. But we have made real accurate calculations to those, and we're prepared for the increase, because we're still not at capacity, which is a good thing, a great thing, and we have room for what's to come the rest of the week. Like we didn't get to do the soft start, that was kind of our plan to say what the numbers will look like, but based on today and the rest of this week, next week we'll be able to zero in and have exact numbers. So today was a great day. Our team pulled through strongly, and thank you guys for giving us the opportunity.
What's your basic, what's your capacity, or what do you,
So it's like part of,
expect?
yeah, so as part of that LDOE, they put the capacity at 50% of the manufacturer capacity, which we have buses that regular education range from 72 to 77 passenger. That's 3 to a seat, so 50% would be 35 to 37, including the driver. So that's when we're gonna start to see, because I would say this morning, as Albert said, that was our average. This morning, for an example, our route had 4, this afternoon it had 15. So there's definitely an increase where parents drive in the morning, and then we make sure what bus they get on in that afternoon. So that's where we're gonna keep attention, and there's gonna be continuous changes. That's where we just ask, the schools, they are wonderful, the community and our drivers, just as we're making these changes to fit with the capacity. It's kind of a new environment, but I think our team did really great, and principals and schools, and it helped. Mr. Eloy published, I will say, the projected routes that we had put in, and I think all the schools were able to look at what street a current route's on, what school does it serve, and now I know if there's a designated stop there, what route I go on, because the main thing again is the route number, not the bus numbers, because routes don't change, buses can change, so it's the route number, and that was really smooth today, so.
Good.
There was not a lot of complaints. Last year, we had some buses switch between morning and afternoon.
Yep.
None of that today. It was all great.
Good, well, we appreciate hearing that, and it's, we're glad to have that report finally, so. Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you for your time.
And you do have, the monitors, the people that are assisting on the
Yes.
buses, they're taking temps, is that correct?
Not of the
They're not.
students, not of the students. We are taking temps of our employees, but the students do not get temps taken.
Until they get to the school?
Correct. I don't know if Mr. Eloy wants to add on.
Well, I have a major concern with the children that have to take the rides to, that are longer than 15 or 20 minutes. If by chance they are asymptomatic or they could possibly have COVID, that puts other children in a position where if that is the situation and they're not being checked before they get to the school, then that puts everybody else at risk. How do we?
So I think what I would say to that is a few things. The issues that arise from taking the temperatures before, it creates a lot of issues. Doesn't negate what your point is, but I think also when you have that situation where a student is on the bus, say they are, they have a temperature and they get on and we just don't know because we didn't take it. With the steps we've taken, whether it be the masks, whether it be the social distancing, the 50% capacity, the increased airflow, et cetera, that student would not necessarily put everyone at risk. It would only possibly, say it's a 15-minute ride, they would possibly put at risk those students immediately around them, but probably not even them. Because if we're talking about a 15-minute bus ride, both students have their masks on, there's good ventilation, and the students are socially distanced, because we're saying today a bus with 15 students, probably no one on that bus necessarily goes home from the Office of Public Health. So now, alternatively speaking, if we have that student who, say we were to take temperatures on the bus, number one, that's an issue with those bus drivers handling, and I know this sounds silly, but it's true, they're handling now medical documentation. And I don't know a bus driver around who wants that responsibility or feels that they should be given that responsibility based on their current job description.
No, I wasn't referring to bus drivers, I'm talking about the monitors that are on the
Well,
bus.
but even the bus monitors, they're now gonna be in charge of medical data. And it's a simplistic medical data for sure, but it's still, there's a lot of responsibilities that come with that. And so then they have that, but then also the situation arises of what happens when we have the student who's at the bus stop, tests with an elevated temperature, and their parents have already left. Does the bus let them on? Well, no, because they have an elevated temperature. But do they leave a child there? Well, no, you can't leave a child there. So then a bus is sitting there. So this is something that we've discussed with LDOE countless times. Pretty much every transportation meeting we've had, this situation comes up. And I'll be honest with you, there's no good answer, because I wouldn't necessarily say that our answer, and when I say our, I mean Louisiana's answer, is a good answer, because you could potentially have a student who gets on a bus with a temperature. I think what we're choosing between this is the best situation, which is still not great. So that's kind of the logic that went into the decision, but I don't disagree with you that it still has gaps in its thing.
Yes, because it's not the greatest situation in the world when you have children that have to ride from here to Provençal, or kids that are on the bus not only 15 to 20 minutes, and they don't check for the temp until they get to the school. So you already put other folks at risk, because they could be asymptomatic or they could have COVID.
So the other thing I would say to
So we
it,
need to look at trying to resolve that issue.
Yes.
There was a concern that was given to me in reference.
yeah, no, I don't disagree, but the only other thing I'll say is that we are with the entire state in doing it this way. I don't think anyone's come up with a reasonable solution to this problem. It's one of those that, you know, I like to think I'm kind of smart, but we've thought about this for months, and we have not come up with a reasonable solution that covers all the issues. And I think people in the transportation field are equally as stumped by it. Yes, sir.
I know that if they asymptomatic, you won't know anyway, if they're asymptomatic, you won't know. But
They won't ride on
I
that
kind of played with that in my head, and I thought about it. Perhaps that is probably the most thought out way, because at least you're gonna have somewhere at that school to put that particular individual once they get there. But the other thing is, if the parents are willing to get that child to school, in spite of the fact that that child has a temperature, they're gonna give them some meds, and probably by the time they get to the school, they may be able to identify. But they're gonna get them on the bus if they're trying to get them there in the first place.
And I think we talked to Dr. White about some of these issues, because let's just be honest, no one's plan, unless we wrap everyone in a bubble and you just kind of waddle around, is perfect in this, in any of this. I mean, there's always going to be, living life is a risk, going out in public right now is a risk, all those things. But I think what sets us apart as a school district from Pizza Hut or any business right now is the fact that when you go out in public, and there's an algorithm out of I think it's Michigan State did this, or University of Michigan rather, that said if you're in a group of more than 50 people right now, you have like a 90% chance of exposure. So that's true anywhere where there's over 50 people. But what we've done is we put in place measures that if you do what we're saying, it takes that 90% chance you'll come into contact with someone, and it says, oh, you're still going to come into contact with them, but you should be safe if you follow these procedures. And that's the difference between being with us at the school, because we're implementing these stringently on the bus everywhere, as opposed to, you know, just going down to the river and having, you know, the farmer's market, there's 200 people, and some are masked, some aren't, and some are socially distanced and some aren't. Whereas today at the school, at all the schools, I was just so impressed with every adult. And, you know, we talked about how kids can or can't do this stuff. I was amazed. The younger the student was, the more apt they were to follow this so strictly. And I mean that they were doing the 6 feet, they were doing all this stuff. So I think we got to get away from the fact that people are going to be exposed. We've all been exposed at some point. There's mathematically no way we have not been. The difference right now is we are in a situation in our district where we are making sure that we mitigate that exposure to the lowest possible levels, and not everywhere is doing that. I think the hospital's doing it, we're doing it, some businesses are, but I think that was to the, I can't remember her name now, the doctor from Natchitoches.
Dr. Mason.
Thank you. Where she said that's the difference between the rest of the community and the schools and the hospital. And I really have taken what she said to heart, because I think that is the only difference, is that we're putting all these things in place. And I think the buses are the same thing, it's just, I'm stumped on that one. I'll be honest with you.
Deal with it when it happens.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time again.
Thank you. Item number 4, see the budget update, that's in your packet.
Yeah, the tax commission.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tax commission report. And you'll see that's also in the packet. It seems to be trending a little better, which is good news.
I sat in on that meeting, and basically everything's improving, but there's certain specific areas that are down, like obviously restaurants and things of that nature. But there's some stuff that's very high compared to even last year, like I think they said RV sales and vehicle sales are way up. So.
Grocery stores and alcohol.
Grocery stores and alcohol are the highest, yes. But
Gasoline,
yep.
face masks.
Yeah, so it's, there's, who knows? Item number 4, I'm sorry, receive budget update, let's do that now. It is in your packet. And that update, was put together, and of course, put together by the county folks, so, we can look at that, and if you have any questions, you can ask those questions. And I don't know if Ms. Pat's here. Yeah, she's
Mr. Chad and Ms. Pat are here.
Yeah. And I do appreciate what they did, putting it together, it's some good information, and starting it.
And just to give you, that's a good kind of segue to, I was going to wait till personnel, but Mr. Wascom, as you all know, we hired him as our supervisor of business affairs, and he will start this Monday. He had to attend to some family business this week, but he's already been looking into this type stuff and going to hit the ground running Monday. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask him tonight, but if you have any bigger questions, I think by next week he'll be able to answer a lot of those just by delving into some of this stuff already.
Right, and this is some good information, very good information here. Of course, it's very new, and we do appreciate the county department putting that together. Thank you. Item number 5.
That's going to be, that's going to be available to y'all Thursday.
Okay.
I've been running Mr. Jocelyn all around the district with the hurricane preparedness and also with installations.
Item number 6, consider approving a change order for Lakeview construction project. Superintendent?
Yeah, so the Lakeview change order, it is there's a deletion of about 3,150 square feet of sod. There's also a change in paint, which increased some dollar amounts. And then it's also 2 extensions based on weather days and COVID days that they lost. So that's just an extension of the contract. And it increases the amount by $1,682. That's for the Lakeview, and I'm sorry it was left off of here. It was my mistake. Also added to that is a change order for NJH. Theirs is a little more expensive. It's around $20,000 change order. The first item on that change order is to make sure we're within code. It's a wiring electrical issue to have emergency lights, and there's currently not a hot wire that goes to those, so that extension of wiring and so on and so forth is about a $15,000 increase. And then there's also, the second one is not a necessity at this point, it's a want, but it's a want that is an important want. It's extension of the fencing to protect the ball fields, because right now people could just drive onto those, and that's about a $4,000 and some change extension. Currently, we still have around $4.5 million in that account for the bond issue, so we're looking at about a $20,000 extra on the change order for that one.
Thank you. Item number 7 is consider adopting consolidated school budget 2021, which we will do that Thursday, so you can look through and see information there. If there's any questions, are there any questions tonight, or? Item number 8, consider approving increasing the multiplier used to determine bus driver compensation in terms of bus capacity.
So what we're asking for here is this would only be in terms of phase 2 and phase 3, because as you know, the governor, Bessie, because of the governor's order, stipulated that buses can only have a capacity of 50% during phase 2 and 75% during phase 3. As we had discussed probably at a few board meetings ago, part of the bus driver compensation, it's an old formula from about 30 years ago that's based on bus capacity, or how many students are on the bus that day. Well, what we've done is we have taken away part of their compensation because of an order from Bessie that probably they had no intention of affecting bus driver salaries. Furthermore, this is something that's already budgeted for. We know that we always budget for the bus drivers to have capacity. So we don't want to save money on the backs of people's salaries. Their notes for their buses, their insurance for their buses has not gone down because of their capacity going down. So all we would ask here is that we could increase the multiplier to equal what would be 100% capacity. And so the multiplier would be one thing during phase 2. In phase 3, when we would see increased capacity but still not 100%, we would increase the multiplier to meet them where they were during a typical year. And that would phase out after the phases.
Any questions? Item number 9, consider approving a resolution officially declaring the results of August 15, 2020 election. Mr. Thomas?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank our voters that did help support this TAC. Also the support from the superintendent and board members that attended these meetings and all. On Thursday night, Reverend Harris and myself will be asking you to pass this resolution accepting the results on that and authorizing the superintendent and president of the board to sign all necessary paperwork where we can start collecting this since January 1st. Just briefly, there was 252 votes casted in favor, 193 against. Passed by 59 votes, which I think during this time of crisis that we were in and all, we did a good job. I appreciate all your help on that. Reverend Harris, you have any comment?
Good.
Mr. President, that concludes mine.
Thank you.
Can you recapitulate concerning the bus situation? The bus company is not asking us to.
And I'm sorry, these are for the board drivers.
These are
owner
operators.
It's only a handful.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
we didn't clarify that.
Okay. I was just trying to make sure. Thank
But
you.
good question, good
Thank you.
clarification.
And I knew that, and I
that's
think
my
you knew
fault.
that, but we didn't say that.
In regards to the bus company, I know at some point we have to make a decision about the contract.
Mhm.
And I remember a few months ago, Ms. Matois asked about us checking for bids from other companies. and even for the school to, the school board to do its own.
So- Yes, ma'am. Whenever Mr. Waskin comes on board, that's on my list of things for him to look at as far as basically a cost-benefit analysis of what we're currently doing, because I think Mr. Matoir even said, investigate the idea of owner-operators and see what is the most cost-effective, and then, put out, if we determine that a contract is the most cost-effective, then we put out for bids for that, and I think Echo.
Or even us leasing the buses.
Exactly. Everything's on the table as far as trying to save the district money and make the most effective use of taxpayer dollars. And I think Mr. Waskin is the man to figure that out for us, because I don't have a financial brain like he does. So.
I understand. Oh, one more person, I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but I thought there's a need to know, so I asked. Ms. Palmer asked about, us having a budget, 101.
I've already mentioned it to him, and he mentioned it to me. We had our first meeting last week, right before the hurricane, and he mentioned that he would like to put together some professional development education for y'all. And I said, well, it's actually interesting you said that, because we just had that discussion amongst ourselves, and Ms. Palmer had mentioned that, so great minds.
Okay, so we'll be looking forward to that soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Myself included.
Okay.
Mr. Eloy, question. For number 8, does the agenda item need to reflect board drivers? Do I need to change that?
Yes, ma'am. Just for board drivers.
Good catch. Mrs. Page, you have not been busy at the first school, have you?
No, sir, not at all. Norman's is not. Okay, we have 3 pages. It's right there. If you have any questions.
Appreciate it.
At this time, we have roughly 294 teachers. We can't be real sure because of the switching systems, so there are a few things that are still off. But we have 65 non-certified, formerly known as long-term subs.
I mean,
65.
that's great. The number's going down.
And I think the vast majority, if not, I'm not gonna say all of them, but the vast majority are enrolled in programs.
They are.
We are trending in the right direction in that area for sure.
You said the vast majority are enrolled in the TAT program?
Whether it's a program with Northwestern or some entity to get their certification.
That's wonderful.
Louisiana College, so, board members, any questions for Mrs. Page? Reverend Harris, your report, please.
And you can, you know what I mean.
So Reverend Harris, for once you're at loss of words.
I am.
Okay, board members, any other questions? Thank y'all, we'll look forward to seeing you 4:30 sharp for the meeting Thursday night. Thank y'all.
Ms. Page,
Good.